Good morning, South Africa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Luzuko Ntissa, Supervisory Legal Practitioner for Legal Aid South Africa in Piet Retief Satellite Office, which is under MLO Local Office. Today I'll be discussing with you juvenile delinquency. Should it happen that you do have any questions during this live broadcast, please do not hesitate to leave them in the comment below and I'll be sure to answer them. Okay, now the first point of departure that I'd like us to look at is what is the definition of juvenile delinquency. In terms of the Constitution Act 108 of 1996 and also the Child Justice Act, a child is a person who is below the age of 18 years. And then the juvenile now is a person who's aged 18 years but just below 21 years of age. But we are not going to confine ourselves much on the issue of Child Justice Act, because that is also a discussion for another day. Our discussion today is basically on juvenile delinquency. Now, what do we mean by juvenile delinquency? This is when juveniles get to behave in a way that is not normal according to the society. This is when these young adults, if I may call them, they start to behave in a wrongful way, which end up now putting them in jail. Incarceration is a possibility in some cases. Then in some cases they must be put under child care, and in some cases, as a result of them having now behaved in this way, their future now becomes in jeopardy. And what are the causes of this juvenile delinquency? When I did my research, what I've discovered is that some of the reasons is poor school attendance, it's poor educational background, it's peer pressure, there are socio-economic issues, there's also substance abuse, there's also lack of moral guardians. Now, how do we then differentiate as to what would be the actual cause? Who do we then blame? Because what happens is that we know our young adults, what they normally do. At home they will behave so innocent because they are our little angels after all, which is why then we would not easily catch up on what they do when they get with their peers. And the peer pressure, ladies and gentlemen, is a reality out there. These children, when they get outside, they will start to use substance abuse. It starts as a way of experimenting for them. And unfortunately, some of the substances that they abuse, they tend to be very dangerous and they are very addictive. Now we'll have a situation now where your young angel now is no longer an angel. He gets hooked, she gets hooked to the substances. We know as a nation currently, we have an issue of nyaupe, which is one of the most dangerous substances that our kids are using in nowadays. And as a result of taking those substances, what happens? They start to behave in a wrongful manner. Now, this is when now they start the problem of stealing. They will start with petty theft, like shoplifting in some of the shops. And from shoplifting, now you have a situation now they engage in fighting. Now, another offense comes in, which is assault common. Then from assault common, it becomes an assault GBH. Now, as this substance abuse continues, and as our young adults get more hooked now, they graduate from these petty crimes, if I may put them. Because after assault GBH, someone may end up dying. Now we have a situation now where we have culpable homicide. We have a situation now where we have murder. Now we have a situation where, because now they want to feed now this new found problem of theirs of using substances, now they get to start housebreaking. We've heard many stories where now we have so many young people who are engaged in housebreaking because they want to steal TVs, they want to steal laptops, they want to grab and run away with the cell phones. Now we have a new set now of offenses. We have housebreaking with intent to steal and theft. We have robbery common, and they graduate. They steal cars, or they steal out of cars. We know of cases where if someone leaves an item unattended inside the car, should they see it, they will smash the window and they will take that item. Now you see now what is happening now. There's a graduation in terms of the offenses that our young adults get into. Now we have robbery, we have kidnapping, and they get up now into doing offenses as serious as rape. And remember, this all has started at a lower level where there was a peer pressure, where there was an experimenting with the substances. And now who do we blame? Do we blame the parents? Do we blame our young adults? Or do we blame the society? Because we cannot always say that, no, it's the parents who have failed. Because the parents will do everything in their power to make sure that they are doing only the best for their children. As an example, I remember when I was working in one of the district courts, there was a young adult who was involved in assault case where he was assaulted by an adult because he was caught stealing an item. It was so sad when I spoke to the mother of that young adult. This child was sent to the best school. This child would be given money to go to school every morning, about 50 rands a day, only to find that instead of going to school with that money, he has started Nyaope already. So he's using the money to buy the substance. He's not going to school. He's just stick around one of the old buildings in the area, and he's smoking Nyaope with his friends. And the parent was actually doing everything for the child. So which is why I'm saying it's difficult to say we can blame parents for juvenile delinquency, because these are the things that they learn from the streets. And also, we cannot say we can 100% blame lack of education, because some of them, they are already in the high school. They are doing grade 10, they are doing grade 11, they are doing grade 12s. And we've also heard stories of people who are already employed, who have already passed grade 12, who get involved into substance abuse. And now they also fall into this category, because now they found themselves doing nothing of value with their lives because they got caught in using substances. And unfortunately, when we look at the justice system that we have Child Justice Act, which can only operate up to just below 18, because in our country, a child is someone who is old up to just before 18. So the moment you get into 18 and above, you are no longer treated as a child. Yes, indeed, if it happens that you are found guilty of an offense, the fact that you are still under 21 years of age will be taken as part of mitigation, in terms of mitigating the sentence should you be found guilty. Or in some cases, that's when, if a magistrate feels that, or also as a defender, you can look at a situation where you can ask for a probation officer's report. Now, what we are trying to do, we are just trying to mitigate the sentence that should be muted by the magistrate. However, the court will treat you as a young adult. You won't be treated as a child at all. Now we have a situation of now our young adults having criminal records, because unfortunately the fingerprints will be taken, and should you be found guilty, now you'll be having a criminal record. And what does that mean? Most of the jobs you'll struggle to be employed, because we know that in most of the jobs they'll always ask, if have you ever been convicted of a criminal offense? And if it happens that the answer is yes, then you may find that you won't be employed. Now, what does the future hold for such a person? It will look really bleak, which is why it is very, very, very important that as young adults, we really need to watch our actions. We really need to take care of ourselves, because juveniles, in a nutshell, it is just a young adult. It is an adult, but a young adult. You are not a child. You are a young adult, and your behavior really needs to show same. I remember there was another case that I dealt with, whereby a young adult got to be involved in a case where there was a shooting. Someone died and the other person was injured. And that young adult was charged with murder, charged with attempted murder, charged with possession of an unlicensed firearm, charged with possession of ammunition. And lastly, he was charged with housebreaking with intent to steal and theft, because there was evidence that someone's house was broken into and the firearm was stolen. Now imagine so many counts for a young adult. And then that person unfortunately was found guilty for murder, found guilty for attempted murder, found guilty for possession of an unlicensed firearm, and lastly found guilty for possession of ammunition. Now we have a young adult who has just been convicted of 4 counts, serious offenses. Yes, a probation officer was sent to look into her personal background, just to mitigate the sentence that had to be muted, because indeed we do have various case law that when the judicial officer considers a sentence, a proper sentence for a young adult, for anyone in that regard, it is very, very important that as a defense you need to request that a probation officer report be compiled. The reason being that just to get to find out as to what is the background of that person, so as to see if can't you get an alternative sentence than a sentence which would normally be incarceration in cases where a serious offense has been committed. So which is why we try by all means as defense attorneys to look for the best interests of the young adult. Because from the side of the state, if you are an adult, you are treated as an adult. And we know there's always an outcry out there from the society that the community will open a case, and then the accused person will be given a linear sentence. And that is all the work of the attorneys, because our job as attorneys is to make sure that best interest of our clients is to get the least sentence that is possible out there. But unfortunately, in some cases, you'll find that we don't have much to work on, which is why I'll always go back to the issue of encouraging our young adults to behave in a better way, so as we won't have a problem as we are having now of such high number of juvenile delinquency that is happening in the country. Because if you go to all the correctional centers as we speak, on Wednesday I happened to go to Piet Retief Correctional Center. It was shocking, it was really sad to see the number of young adults who were kept in custody there. because they've committed various offenses. The fact that they were in custody is because they actually committed serious offenses. There are others who have committed rape. There are others who committed sexual offenses, sexual assault. There was murder. There was robbery. Because what now is the stats in the country is because when we're talking about juvenile, we're talking about people who are from age 18 to 21. Most of the crimes are committed by people who are of that age. And also, there's also an understanding that even criminals now, they make use of these young adults to commit crimes because they say you are young, probably the magistrate won't be too harsh on you because of your age. Unfortunately, in those cases, our youth, they end up now being involved in these crimes because there's easy money to be made. And then if it happens that you get incarcerated, now your life will never be the same. Because now that means your future, you'll only survive as a delinquent. Your life will depend on committing crime so as to feed yourself, so as also to feed your newfound now friend, which will be a drug abuse, which is really sad out there. So by that, I will find out if there are any comments on what I've just discussed.
We have two questions. The first one is, how long do juveniles, how long can they expect to await trial for? So if they are awaiting their trial, how long will that period be? What is the max period? What does the law say?
Okay. In terms of awaiting trial, there are various reasons sometimes why one would wait for a very short period of time and why sometimes wait for a very long period of time. There are cases that I would refer to as petty cases. Like if you have a case of shoplifting, theft from a shop, within a week or two, that case, the investigation in a case like that should be finalized. And that matter should be finalized within a month. Because all you need to do, the state, they just need to get the statements from the witnesses, from the, if the security officers from the store, that shouldn't take long. Then now you have cases where, let's say, murder has happened. Now you have a post-mortem report that must be compiled. There are photos that must be obtained. There are witnesses that must be obtained. And in some cases, there may be DNA that may be required. And even though I know that it's not by law, but from my experience, what I've discovered is that most of the cases that involves DNA will be informed that we should at least wait for about 4 months, 120 days. Why? Because all this material, all the DNA material must be sent to Pretoria. We don't have many laboratories in the country that are dealing with buccal swabs where DNA can be obtained. So it is in Pretoria. So which is why there's that minimum period of 120 days. Yes, it could be lesser than that, but we are looking at a minimum of 120 days if a case will involve DNA. And also if there was a firearm that was used, then there must be ballistic report that must be obtained. That means there must be comparison of that firearm together with the ammunition that was used. And also there must also be gunpowder testing, which is now why you'll find that in most of these serious offenses, the waiting period, the awaiting trial period, it's longer than expected. It's not your petty crime like your shoplifting where you only need 2 witnesses, that is the security guys, or assault common where I say, no, I was hit with an open hand. You only need a maximum of 2 witnesses. Assault GBH, you just, after you've been assaulted and injured, you go and see the doctor in hospital, and then you fill in the J88 form. That's all that you need. So the awaiting trial period will be determined by the offense that has been committed. Yes.
And then our other question, could you tell us more about the process that juveniles would or could expect following arrest? When do they encounter legal aid SA in terms of legal representation? So if they're arrested, what then happens, and at what point do they meet a legal aid SA representative?
Thank you. When it comes to the arrest of the juveniles, unfortunately, it doesn't work like a case where it is a child, where we know that now there will be a preliminary inquiry, whereby the child will be taken and given to the guardian or to the parents. The moment the young adult is arrested by the police officers, they have about 48 hours for the young adult to appear in court. But that 48 hours is very tricky because it doesn't count weekends, it doesn't count holidays. We used to laugh about this where when we are about to close for Easter holidays, we'd say, please be careful. You don't want to be arrested on Thursday before a Good Friday, because you will only appear in court after the Easter Monday, which will be about 5 days later. So in 48 hours, the juvenile, after you have been arrested, will appear in court. And then one of the rights that will be explained in court will be legal representation. And Legal Aid South Africa will be there for you. Because most of our people we know, they are indigent, and legal aid is always there for such indigent people. Legal aid is always there for those people who are vulnerable. So when they get to court, they get to get a legal aid practitioner who are available in all our district courts. Then they get representation immediately. Thank you. I would say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. However, if you do have any further questions on this topic, you can call our toll-free number, Legal Aid Advice Line, on 0800 110 110, weekdays between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. However, if you cannot call, you can send a please call me to this number, 079 835 7179. 079 835 7179, and we'll call you back. Thank you.